was there ever a doubt? Like, was it a hard decision to make to, put the supporters, midfield where you could, charge a lot of money for? And Sean Mann's reply was, the revenue consultants did not agree with our decision. Big news out of Detroit. There was an event yesterday in the city of Detroit, the opening of the new stadium, the AlumniFi Field Preview Center. It's like kind of a welcome area right when you get off the bridge from Canada, and there's like welcome center, all sorts of different buildings. But for now, their temporary offices are set up in this building called the Mercado, and they had a setup of a replication of a suite. They had a model of the stadium and various meet and greet of the owners and the architects. But big news to come out of this was that AlumniFi Field delayed opening to 2028. We already thought that, since they hadn't broken ground yet and we're halfway through 2026, that 27 opening date was kind of seeming more and more ambitious. But 2028, officially the opening of the stadium. Hamtramck and Keyworth, another year after all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that'll give the longtime fans, the Northern Guard and everybody else, an opportunity to, say goodbye in a very real and planned way. I'm sure that, again, they probably wanted this to be the last year because what an achievement building this stadium will be for Detroit City FC. I mean, I don't think you can overstate what this club has done and how they've gotten here. It's impossible. Who could have ever imagined an American soccer club starting the way that Detroit City FC has started and getting to this point? And again, the stadium's not built yet. Shovels are in the ground. They're working on it.
They knocked down the huge abandoned building that was already there. Like, work is being done here. And I think the groundbreaking is going to be in July, I think was another announcement during this event.
Yeah, so here it is from the press release. And again, that's the rendering we've all seen. They included it in this latest update, but that's the plan still. As part of this update, the club shared a revised project timeline that now targets the stadium opening for the 2028 USL Championship season. While planning, design, partnership development, and community engagement continue to advance in the near term, the adjusted timeline is intended to ensure Detroit City FC and its partners deliver the strongest possible fan experience, matchday environment, and long-term community impact. Plans are underway for a ceremonial groundbreaking for AlumniFi Field in July. Rob, remind me, what is the timeline on USL Premier?
The timeline on USL Premier, as it stands now, is 2028. So that kind of becomes a hinky timeline there, doesn't it? But there hasn't been any like super thing solid. Like, I guess they put in the press releases, but we could wake up tomorrow and a press release be like, actually, it's been pushed out to 2030.
No, I think, obviously it kind of lines up, right? And maybe this is part of why Detroit City feels like they have more time to get this done. And look, I prefer do it right over do it fast. Now, and if you do, but look, this is the tipping point for a lot of these clubs is if we don't do it fast, we lose momentum and we hurt our chances of survival. But if we don't do it right, we lose our opportunity to create a good first impression or really look like a serious operation. Detroit City has so much goodwill in the city of Detroit from what they've been as an amateur short season summer league team to this that I don't think it matters for them. And I think they know that. There was a detail in the presentation, Rob, that you wanted to pass along as we look at Rob sent along. Rob got a couple of pictures. Oh, they got the bear. Let's update on the bear. What's going on with our dumpster friend?
Yeah, there was news that Friendly the Dumpster Bear, DCFC's mascot, was stolen from a staff member's car over the weekend. But they got an anonymous tip just a day later, and it was recovered yesterday and made a special appearance at this preview center opening, which, is good lore for the club and kind of a wild story anyway in the midst of all the World Cup action. Be like, oh, no, the local mascot's been stolen? Hell no.
Okay, so people don't know, right? Or a lot of people probably do, but this bear costume was salvaged from a dumpster during Detroit City's amateur days and became the club. And that's incredible lore, right? Friendly is back, and Friendly comes from this place. Go ahead.
And in part of midlife, my favorite ever Friendly clip was during the COVID lockdown when they were trying to play games in empty stadiums. Friendly the Bear was walking across an empty stadium, like drinking beers and stuff like that on the stream, which was an all-time Friendly moment in my opinion.
Yeah, Friendly is part of the. You can't get rid of Friendly. I do wonder if maybe an additional mascot is in the offing once the stadium gets open. But let's not worry about that right now. Again, Rob's photos here. We got I think this is timeline.
It's a timeline, yeah, all the way on the left, 2010 when they were just like a community, like neighborhood rec league, and then they 2012 they launched the NPSL team, and all the way on the right hand side is them going pro, and then now the renderings of the new stadium.
Yeah, we got again these models in addition to renderings. Rob got pictures of the models, obviously not as evocative because it's a model. It can't possibly be. They didn't put any little mini people in there. Kind of wish they had put some mini people in there, Rob. Okay, while we're looking at this, and I believe the left-hand side of this photo would be the press box area,
the suites,
where the cameras would be based to point at the other side. So give us the update on what that plan is for 2028 in this building and the loyal supporters of Detroit City.
Yeah, one of the key announcements in this event was that the supporters section, the most dedicated and visual fans, the diehards that have been the face of DCFC's rise, will be on the side in the midfield section of this new stadium. Obviously traditionally, like the supporter section goes behind a goal, but they've played in, high school style stadiums where they only have stadia on the side. So big question was, when they moved to this new stadium and they're, become more as professionalized as they could be, would they, put the supporters at the end section? But no, part of the details released yesterday was that NGS is going to be along the side.
Yeah, that is a choice. What did you tell me? Let me see if I can find here's that rendering again in its full glory. What did you tell me you were told by one of the owners of Detroit City FC, Sean Mann?
Yeah, so I got to have some great chit chats with a couple owners, but when I was talking to Sean Mann and we're talking about was there ever a doubt? Like, was it a hard decision to make to, put the supporters, midfield where you could, charge a lot of money for? And Sean Mann's reply was, the revenue consultants did not agree with our decision, which I thought was an incredibly wonderful way to put it. That they did all the they considered all the angles, and they went with let's keep the supporters on the side. That's a big part of what's gotten us here. And
look,
replicate that in a new stadium, which is
a nod to the culture. Yes, absolutely, and I respect that. I do worry a little bit about the revenue part, but if they think they can ride this wave and that it's ultimately not going to be debilitating to the club, then that's their choice. And yes, the visual nature of Detroit City FC support, their most ardent support, the Northern Guard and everybody else, is such a feature of who they are that to relegate them to an off-screen, in-zone, behind-the-goal location would be a bit of a travesty. And I remember, Rob, this evokes for me memories of when towards the end of their life at RFK Stadium, DC United had their supporters on the sideline. It was basically because of the way the stadium was configured. They didn't have an end for the supporters at that point at RFK Stadium after the baseball team, after the football team had left. So they had them on the side. And the thing about RFK, this is not a thing, I don't think this can be a thing in Detroit in this new stadium, but the thing at RFK is the stadiums would bounce, the stands would bounce because they were the kind you could push back. So the fans would bounce up and down on the stands. I thought that brought such an energy to United games that they don't have right now. And DC United has an incredible supporter section. Even when they're bad, they have the steep rake. They have a wall of fans in one end. But it requires, when you're watching on television, it requires extra effort on the part of television directors to go to that shot. And obviously through regular action, you're on the sideline. This as a backdrop is going to be incredible.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a unique look. And I was actually going to ask, I'm glad you brought up the DC United stuff, because I was going to say, was that a choice by the team or just a product of the environment? And you said it was just the way the construction was that they had them on the side.
Yeah, I think that was forced upon them. I don't think that was necessarily their choice. What are we looking at here?
So DCFC is stepping into the world of suites. If you've ever been to Keyword Stadium, there is nothing really close to that. They have the shipping containers at the end, which is the only really enclosed area, which is interesting. I don't know if we have it in the slideshow, but the one end, because I asked what's going to replace, traditionally the supporter section is behind a goal, because way back in the day those were the cheap seats. So the most ardent hardcores that wanted to go every game, they get the cheap seats behind the goal. So like, how are you going to incentivize the quote unquote cheap seats now? And they were saying that they're still going to have the shipping containers along the end, but there's going to be a stand up that, and that's going to be the family focused area.
Okay, interesting.
And then so the one side is like you
right.
said, the camera bays, the press side. I think that's going to be largely suites and some elevated or premier seating, and then the other side will be the NGS all along the bottom. Which actually, when I put the news in the Discord server, so if you're an ultra, you would have seen this stuff yesterday. There was some concern that's been already communicated that because the NGS section, it's the whole width of the lower section, which I'd argue is kind of like how it is at Keyworth anyway. It's not the incredibly depth section, but there's concern that the NGS could be thinned out with the width of all that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we'll see how that goes, because you don't want if you're doing your supporters there. I mean, is there two levels here, or is that just sort of like a walkway between? There is two levels. It's just
there is two levels, and at least one of these stands is 3 levels.
Okay.
I eavesdropped on the architects talking to the proper local media.
Okay, I think on this side, which is where the suites and the camera bay, as you said, it does look like there's a club level there. So you have your field level, you have a club level, and you have your upper deck, which is, again, in a stadium this small is not that far away from the field. I also wanted to point out that you go back to these shots of the design of the suites. Let me see if I can find that one again. Here's one. I mean, if this is the way it's going to look, and the interior decorators have done this, interesting to include the particle board look, which I imagine is a throwback, kind of a nod to their humble roots at Keyworth.
Yeah, that's a good observation there. When I saw that, because they had a preview of this at this Welcome Center event yesterday, and I almost thought it was just because it wasn't finished, but you're right. It's right here in the renderings, and that's what they're going for. Yeah, it's a DIY club and supported club, and part of actually one of the details is they're going to have a season ticket holder club owner community ownership meeting coming up is in the new in the next couple of weeks following the opening of this event, because this facility, this preview center, is going to be largely open to the members and the deposit holders over the summer, and there's going to be tours and stuff like that. But lots of announcements, and a preview center open now for AlumniFi Field, which is now set to open in 2028.